I heard most of your teeth are falling.
That is true. That is very true. So most of my front teeth have gone through rugby. I've had my nose broken multiple times. Unfortunately, I suffered 4 broken bones in my neck. So I have 2 prolapse discs and a number of bones floating around in my spinal cord. So it was serious enough to say that's the end of my playing days.
It took me almost 6 months to get him the medical insurance. He was extremely busy traveling, and also it took me almost 6 months to place the business. He was a smoker that time. Buys a policy, less than a year into the policy, he's diagnosed of throat cancer. Probably the best comments I've heard for my profession. He says, Ashok, when you came to sell me a policy, I thought you were a pain. And when he was going through the treatment, he says, Ashok, now I remember you almost every day. Good morning, Andy.
Hi Ashok, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Andy, looking at you today, I won't say, but I was told you're almost a professional rugby player.
That's very true. Yeah, it was. That's very true.
Tell us about the game.
Okay.
It looks very dangerous and rough.
It certainly is, yes. It's certainly not for the faint-hearted. It's very, very high-impact sport.
Yeah.
I got into it quite late, really. A lot of children today start playing at a very young age. Yeah. But I went to a school that was predominantly football or soccer to some people. So rugby was introduced at a very late stage. But I was fortunate to be in a team that won the school's championship, and I was picked up by a couple of rugby clubs, and I went to play. But back in those days, rugby was not a professional sport, so you weren't paid to play. You had to do something else. So you had a lot of doctors and accountants and so on that played rugby at a high level. And so financial services was an interesting one, because a lot of guys also worked in financial services that played rugby at a high level. So it allows you to have that flexibility, to be able to train at a good level without being paid as such. So I did that. So I got into financial services, really.
So you mean to say now you have to pay to get bashed up?
You used to, you used to. Not only did you get physically injured, you had to pay to get physically injured, But the world changed in 1995. It went professional. Yeah. So from then on, people started getting paid to play, and today at the very highest level, people are paid very well, and it's become a very interesting sport. But yeah, that was towards the end of my career, because in 1995, I'm already reaching the peak of my age for the sport.
So how many times did you get injured? Tell us about your injuries.
You can probably see some of them by just looking at my face, But
I heard most of your teeth are falling.
That is true. That is very true. So most of my front teeth have gone through rugby. I've had my nose broken multiple times on the rugby pitch, not off the rugby pitch, but on the rugby pitch. But yeah, I've had a few serious injuries. In fact, the last injury that I had stopped me from playing the sport any longer, which is back in 1998. Yeah, a long time ago now. But unfortunately, I suffered 4 broken bones in my neck. So I have 2 prolapse discs and a number of bones floating around in my spinal cord. So it was serious enough to say that's the end of my playing days.
Did you have insurance to manage all these?
I was very fortunate at that time to be working for an insurance company here in the UAE that had good medical cover. So thankfully, what that did, it gave me the opportunity to fly back to the UK. I had some checks here, first and foremost, in one of the top spinal clinics in Dubai, and they checked out my neck, and that's when I found out the damage that was done. And then from that, they recommended that I visit a hospital back in the UK. And again, that was covered by my medical insurance. So I was able to go back and get first class advice. I also wrote to the rugby union and spoke to their head surgeon it took me several months to get an appointment with this gentleman, but again, it's covered from my medical insurance. And from that, a diagnosis was made, and then solutions were given to me in order to continue, sort of working first and foremost, and getting back on my feet. Yeah.
Andy, what would have happened if you did not have the proper medical insurance? What do you think would have been the situation? Can you visualize? Can you think about?
Yeah, I think without that medical cover, first and foremost, I would have. So I've seen people here go to, let's say, the government hospitals, and what I've noticed in the government hospitals, they do have some good staff in there, some good, but not specialists necessarily. So the problem with that is if you have a very specialist injury, without this proper cover, you're not going to get the proper specialists when you need them. So you might have to wait for quite some time for consultation, which is what I saw. By having the medical cover, it allows you to go to a private specialist clinic to get the proper advice, and also to give you a roadmap to recovery. So I think without that medical cover, it would have been very difficult.
Very difficult.
And it could have made it worse.
I
could have done something which I shouldn't have done. So I think if you're a sportsman, and especially if you're a rugby sportsman, you always think that you're okay and you can carry on when you shouldn't. The danger is that you go back into the sport before you're fully recovered, and then you just make it even worse. Mine was already permanent, but I didn't know that at the time. I could have easily just waited a few weeks and then felt I was okay to go back in, and then I could have really been in trouble. We're talking about the injury I had. I was lucky that I wasn't, paralyzed, for instance. So I've got people that I played with that are now in that predicament. Unfortunately, I was lucky. I didn't get into that situation, but I could have done if I'd continued playing.
Yeah, you were fortunate that you had the medical cover, and this was sports injury. But so many times we come across people who have suddenly been taken ill without any previous knowledge or previous. It just happened suddenly. They go to a doctor and find out that it's acute, and the medical insurance becomes extremely important. I have had similar experiences when I talk to my clients. Yeah, we've come to Dubai to accumulate, to earn some extra money, and then at some stage go back or buy a house and save for our children's education. But it's extremely important that unless you have proper medical insurance, should you fall sick, all your saving plans will be wiped out, because you'll be spending all the money that you were planning to save for the children's education and for the daughter's wedding and your retirement. We may land up paying to the doctors. What's your opinion?
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a couple of points I'd say on that. I think we're very reliant on the employer here giving us a group medical scheme, for instance. So
it's mandatory in Dubai.
It's mandatory, right? Absolutely.
But in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and I heard it's becoming mandatory from next year in the other northern Emirates also.
Right, which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely a good thing. But the employees will only take the policy that's provided by the employer. So sometimes they don't really understand what the coverage is from the employer's medical scheme. I think it's important that the individuals really understand the medical plan they've got, because most of the time they only find out once they make a claim, once they go along to a clinic and find out things aren't covered. So I think it's important for individuals to check what their company is providing. Some employers are really good and generous, and they make sure to give good coverage to employees, and some are really looking for the coverage they can afford.
Yes, Andy, I think every company has got a certain amount of budget that they can spend. And within the budget, they see what is the best they can provide. At times, the cover provided is good, and they cover the families. But at times, because of the constraints in the budget, they are able to provide just the basic medical cover, what is required.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think this is where the individuals would need to check.
Yeah.
They should go back and check to see what they've got and maybe see if they can, upgrade their
Enhance the cover. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
or take another policy if need be. But I think that's quite important when it comes to medical for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had a couple of clients where their group medical policies have exhausted because they were diagnosed with serious illness and the group medical benefits were exhausted and they didn't have anything more and they had to start contributing for themselves for the extra expenses that they had to incur.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's something else that people may not be aware of. When it's a group scheme, it covers a certain budget for the whole of the members of the scheme. I think also that thing with, if I take myself as an example, but other people that I've seen in the UAE that have had serious injuries through sport, as an example, it's also having that combination of medical with critical illness cover as well, because a lot of the times there's that crossover, isn't there, between medical insurance and what that covers, and then the critical illness that takes over, if it's a very serious injury. So I think again, you need to have a consultation with a professional.
Yeah. Recently, I went to a client and I offered him a top-up plan. He has the medical cover through the group, and then we also offered him a top-up plan that is only in-hospital policy, which covers for all major medical expenses. He can go to any part of the world. This time he chose including USA, but we have the choice of taking including USA or excluding USA. And so it's a top-up plan. After his group medical benefits are exhausted, should he require, he can avail of the top-up plan. At least he has the peace of mind that in case of major illness, he and his family are protected.
Yeah. Very good. That's good.
Yeah.
Again, that's the sort of thing that people may not be aware of, right?
May not be aware. Yeah.
So it's again talking to someone who's professional that can help.
Yeah, I think it's extremely important that we make sure that we have these top-up plans, or we are covered for any major expenses. We have critical illness, but critical illness pays a lump sum amount. But this top-up plan would cover for all the medical expenses. Hospitalization. I'm not talking about the regular cough and cold, but hospitalization plans.
Yes. I think the other thing as well about the medical cover covers the medical expenses, but it doesn't cover loss of income.
Loss of income. That's where the critical illness would come. Yeah.
And I think that's the other. I think I had an injury when I was younger. Another injury, which I was told it was 2 days in hospital.
Yeah.
And when they operated, the damage was more serious, and it ended up being 6 months off of work, which actually I lost my job at the time. So, I didn't plan to be off work for 6 months. And I was a young guy, as a young guy, I didn't expect, you're young, healthy, fit. You don't expect that to happen. But it's that side of it we need to think about as well. What happens if, not just the medical, what happens as well, loss of income. Yeah.
It's extremely important. And sometimes, when we're young, we think we are not vulnerable, and it happens every time.
Yeah.
Young people don't think anything can happen to them.
Yes.
But we have seen that 40% of the major claims happen by the age of 40, 45. So it's extremely important that we protect and cover up all the bases.
Yeah.
I asked my client, Mr. Prospect, you're saving money. What percentage of your savings are you allocating for your medical expenses? And he says, Ashok, none. I said, one day you will go to a doctor, you will go to a hospital. I hope it happens very late in your life.
Yeah.
And he says, no, Ashok, I haven't planned. I said, either you buy medical insurance, proper medical insurance, or you allocate a certain amount of your wealth to give it to the doctor. Probably go and talk to the doctor.
So I think I should have invested in a dental practice. The amount of money I've spent on dental work over the last few years is it's interesting as well. It's a bit like we were talking earlier about cars. I know you love your cars. It's a bit like car insurance, isn't it? You've got third party fire and theft, and you've got comprehensive. And it's interesting. If you have a very, you love cars, you have a very nice car, you're not going to give it, third party coverage only, are you? You're going to go for that comprehensive policy.
Cover,
You want to make sure that car is really taken care of, anything happens to it.
And you used to drive a Rolls Royce at one time.
Yes.
What, a brand new one?
Maybe.
Were you taking care of your car, or just because you have bought an expensive car, you weren't taking care of your car? You were.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate. I've had a lot of nice cars because that's been
You don't have to be modest, but yeah.
Yeah.
Similarly, I think even if you have health insurance, does not mean that you don't have to take care of your health. So all those people, when you're young, you're healthy, we still have to take care of our health. You may have health insurance, you may have the best medical policies, but you still have to look after your health.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you're right. If you've got if it's something you care for and you want to look after, you'll we'll go back to the car analogy. You'll get it serviced regularly, but you're not going to go to the cheapest agency in Al Quoz or in Musafa in Abu Dhabi. You're going to go to the agency, aren't you? Because you want to make sure everything is done perfectly for that car. You're going to make sure it's serviced up regularly. You're going to make sure all the things that you should do looks after that car. And I think if we switch that over to medical, it's the same. Look at the provider that's giving you the medical. Is this a company that is going to pay out when you have a claim? Is it a company that's going to, all these things is the same. We should be taking ourselves as seriously as we take care of those things.
Unfortunately, some people spend more on their car insurance than they would spend on their medical insurance.
Yes, I'd agree.
Yeah, I think my health is more important. I have to look after my health, that's one. But also I have to have a proper medical insurance, Should I fall sick?
Yes. Yeah.
Should I fall sick, I can go to the best doctor, I can go to the best medical facility to look after my health so that I can focus on recovery and not worry about my finances.
Yes.
It
reminds me of another story, actually, just as we're talking. I had an agent come to work for me in the industry, and she was complaining of leg pains. And this went on for several weeks, and we didn't know what the leg pain was. And she went to the hospital for tests. Now, the gentleman that did the tests actually turned out to be a client of ours. So we were able to get some inside information probably a little bit quicker. And we found out that she'd been diagnosed with cancer. And she was 24. Okay. Now, we were advised to get her back to the UK as quickly as possible. And because of the insurance that we had, we were able to get her into a private clinic in the UK. And she went back. She was at I think she was stage 3 or 4 at the time. It spread all over her body, at this point, because they didn't know what the pain in the leg was. No idea what it was. And it was probably months. It'd been on for probably months. There is good news to this story. She did recover. And my staff used to write to her every week to keep her positive. But 2 years later, she fully recovered. 3 years later, she came back to work for me as one of my managers. And today, she wrote a book on her life story and what happened. She's a motivational speaker. And she talks about the importance of life, critical illness, and medical as part of what she does. She's back in the UK at the moment. I know she's interested in coming back to UAE, so maybe we'll get her back soon. But it's a true story. But if it wasn't for that, again, going back to having the right medical, maybe it would have been a different ending, a different story.
I want to share one of my clients. It took me almost 6 months to get him the medical insurance. Not because he didn't want to make a decision, but the insurance company wanted some medical reports, and he was extremely busy traveling, and also it took me almost 6 months to place the business. He was a smoker that time. Buys a policy, less than a year into the policy, he's diagnosed of throat cancer. And he goes to UK He's alive and kicking now, so he's perfectly all right. He goes to UK for the treatment, and he says probably the best comments I've heard for my profession. He says, Ashok, when you came to sell me a policy, I thought you were a pain. And when he was going through the treatment, he says, Ashok, now I remember you almost every day. I think that was the best compliment I could get for what we have been able to do for our clients.
Yes.
I hope our clients stay healthy and they
Yes.
look after their health.
Yes.
And but when it happens, then they can focus on recovery. They know that they're safe. They know that the money that they are saving for their future
Yes.
is secure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, you're absolutely right. And that's what a fantastic compliment to have, really, because I think that's what inspires you to do what we do.
Absolutely.
And I say to people, until you have your first claim, you don't really understand the role we play, right? Once you have your first claim and you see what it means to people, then you really understand, So I think we all plan for a long, healthy future, but we need to cope with that unexpected. So that's important. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ashok.
I know you're not going to get back on the rugby, but I hope you can inspire young people to play rugby.
Certainly.